Hi, hello everyone, this is William and it will be my second flight simulator tutorial on the PMDG 737 NGX. The first one we did this in Chinese, and that was in also 737 aircraft landing automatically. I use the auto land capability of the airplane to land at the Beijing Capital International Airport in China. And this time I'm gonna doing this in English just because I'm flying in foreign country. Yeah, it will be Bermuda International Airport in the Northern Atlantic. The ICAO code of the airport is Tango X-ray Kilo Foxtrot, or TXKF, as we will regularly call it. And we are actually now in parallel with the airport. I'm now pausing the simulator, as you can see, and the airport is at around this position. And we'll gradually turn to this, but before that we have some setup to do. So first of all, let me just reset my camera view here. So first of all, this time we will be landing the aircraft manually, but not totally manually. We are now at 4,000 feet. It's a barometric reading, and we are gonna take over the aircraft. We're not gonna take over the aircraft until 500 feet AGL or above ground level. So, and we are not gonna use the IRS. We're only gonna use the LNAV and the CWS, or the control wheel steering capability of this aircraft. It's kind of like fly-by-wire. It's pretty cool. You can just neutral your control. Stay your controls at neutral, and the aircraft will automatically trim itself for you. It's actually pretty cool. So first, let's just look at the flight management computers. See, so our approach reference speed would be 134. That would be something we will select later. Since I'm now pausing the simulator here, I'm not going to do anything. I'll just leave it that way, and I think I've configured the aircraft pretty well for the final approach phase. Just check. Yeah, so all the lights are on. It's actually pretty cool. Okay, so now let's go to our landing briefing. So this is our navigation display. So as you can see, this is a point of our final approach fix, or whatever you want to call it. Since we're not using an ILS, it will be a pretty so we can do everything at our discretion. That's basically what I mean. Bear with me, English is not my first language. And we can say that this is now our heading. I selected heading of wind 17, but obviously there's some wind, so our real track is actually pointing to wind 18, but only 1 degree difference is not what I would be so concerned about. And now the autopilot is still in control, and we're gonna select LNAV to fly to this navigation final approach fix, and to make sure that the aircraft will be in the final approach configuration. That means flaps 40, landing gears down, and auto brake and the speed brake are on. The final landing configuration at around this point RX30, and the altitude at which point should be around 3,200 feet above the not above the ground level, but the barometric reading. Okay, so first of all, let's start the simulator. It will become quite noisy, so you should be prepared. Okay, so now we're at 4,000 feet, and let's see what we can do here. We can actually first set the auto brake. We are going to use auto brake 3 since the runway is quite long actually. So everything is set here. Yeah, and we're gonna choose the final approach reference speed as 134, and it should display it over here, right? Okay, and we'll go flaps 1. We're in 240, so it's pretty safe to go flaps 1. So the autopilot will hold that steadily at 4,000 feet. and we are not gonna change everything until at around 600 feet, where we will disconnect the auto throttle, and finally at 500 feet we will disconnect the autopilot. Yeah. So now, since we are going to get to 3,200 feet at this waypoint, we can start the descent now. So I just choose the 32,000 here and press the level change. The aircraft should automatically descend to the desired altitude. Let's see how it look if I start turning here. This will be a quite tight turn. We'll just wait for a while. Until we get to 32,000. Actually, we can slow down a little bit. So landing manually is actually I still can't do this very well if I don't have the control wheel steering or things like that. But it's pretty fun. Yeah, we all should try landing manually. And it's kind of a big aircraft and not that hard to land actually. They are pretty pilot friendly, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so we're gonna choose the LNAV now. We are gonna execute the waypoint, and the aircraft will automatically turn to position. And at the same time, we're gonna choose our go around altitude if in case there's a missed approach, or there is unlikely in this kind of weather, will be 4,000. And we'll start to slow down. Actually, we are starting to slow down right now. I don't want to get too fast on the final lap, since we will become very, very busy. Yeah, it's still not very. And when appropriate, when we're ready, we can go to flaps 2. And slow down even more. So we just gradually slow down and add flaps to make sure that we are not too close when we are approaching the runway. So remember, our final reference speed is 134 knots. Okay, so we're gonna live at flaps 10, because if we are at flaps 15, the landing gear horn will sound. So we're gonna hold it at 154. It's actually a little too slow. Let's make it 170. The auto throttle will automatically spool up to maintain the speed, which is very good. So what we're gonna look at is this thing. It allows an RMP, the navigation, vertical navigation performance of 400 feet, and now it said the glide path is 600, around 600 above us, and we should take a look at that. And when we think it's approaching fast enough, we're gonna drop more speed and drop more flaps. So maybe we're gonna slow down. Flaps 15, landing gear down. So 139 will be our final approach speed, because it's 130 Wind 34, I guess, plus 5. Let me check. Yeah, it's wind 34 plus 5, so it will be wind 39 will be our final approaching speed. We should watch that because everyone knows that the Asian Airlines crashed in San Francisco. The 777 crashed in San Francisco. It crashed mainly because the pilot just forgot to watch the speed. Okay, we are gonna get into our final landing configuration. It's pretty tricky. Set flaps to 40. And we're gonna disconnect the altitude hold so that we can control the altitude manually. So the control wheel steering functionality of this aircraft is pretty cool. As you can see, that is as indicated by the CWS, not AWS, right? Here, it's control wheel steering. It's a pretty cool function, which when you just put your controls at neutral, the aircraft will trim itself automatically to meet the desired approach speed and the vertical speed, which is pretty awesome. And since we are already in our final approach configuration, let's just arm the spoiler. So the ground spoiler, the speed brake will extend automatically when we touch the ground. So now it's 2500. We're gonna set our minimums. Actually, I should do it earlier. It will be 200. 200. Okay. So the good thing to remember is there's two things we can reference. We can keep track of. The first thing is this thing. We need to keep this needle right aligned with this white line, or we can just keep the bird cage. Pilots call this the bird cage. So we should line up the bird cage with the landing zone of the runway. We cannot see the runway very clearly here, but anyway, the heads-up display is also a friend of us. Okay, so upon touchdown, the auto brake will automatically brake the airplane for us. So we just make sure we don't want to brake, don't touch the brakes. Otherwise, we'll need to brake manually. And at around 30 feet AGL, I will cut off the throttle. And after touchdown, I will activate the thrust reverser. The thrust reverser. Very hard to pronounce. Just bear with me. There's still a while to go. Yeah, I actually did a pretty good job this time. I lined up pretty accurate with the landing zone of the runway. Just make some small corrections. You can see that the LNAV is actually lining us up perfectly with the runway. Oh, there's a small glitch there. I don't know why this happened, but it happens sometime. It happens sometime. Just 1,000 feet, we're gonna check our landing status. Flaps down, gear down, auto brake, speed brake. Okay, so we are ready to go. At 600 feet, I'm gonna disconnect the auto throttle. I'll flare at 50 and I will cut out the throttle at 30. So I'll disconnect the autopilot, silence that alarm. We have a little wind over there. We need to adjust our attitude to make sure we'll get down at the landing zone over there. So putting our minimums now.
100. 50. 20, 10.
Thrust reverser. The auto brake is braking for us. We are a little off the center line, but we are still okay. 16 knots, we kick out the reverser. We're basically ready to go. Okay, soft touchdown, we set the parking brake, turn the auto brake off, and this ground spoilers off, and we retract our flaps. So pretty much done, right? Landing is really not that hard, isn't it? Okay, enjoy the beautiful island of Bermuda. I dreamed of being there physically, actually, not only in the flight simulator. I'll see you next time. This is William.